You are an amazing woman and mom, and we thank you for being vulnerable and sharing this and touching the lives of others.
Thank you. I really appreciate being here. So,
thank you, Kouri.
Thank you.
How did a woman named Kouri Darden, now known as Kouri Richins, how did she go from becoming this cute little checkout girl at Home Depot, catching the eye of a contractor named Eric Richins, to marrying him, having 3 of his beautiful boys, becoming a realtor in her own right and very successful, to now sitting in the Summit County Jail in Utah being accused of poisoning him? How did she go from that cute little meet cute situation in Home Depot to this seemingly money-grubbing woman fighting with her sister-in-law over the terms of her prenup with Eric, and now going viral after Eric's death for writing a book about helping her children deal with the loss, the grief in the wake of their father's death? What happened in between? We're going to talk about all of it, everything I found. Today is Thursday, March 11th, 2023, and this true crime story is a doozy. I just had to dig into it because I'm trying to understand Kouri. What is really real and what is motivating her? So let's talk about them meeting. Let's talk about them marrying. Let's talk about the brouhaha in the marriage and how Kouri wanting to flip a really expensive house didn't sit well with Eric. Let's talk about her alleged 3 poisoning attempts of her husband. Unfortunately, it appears the 3rd one was successful. And now as we sit and wait and watch and follow this case, let's catch us all up to speed so we're ready when Kouri appears in court on May 19th. So, Kouri B. Darden, she's now known as Kouri Darden Richins. She's only 33 years old. She's a white female born in April 1990. Kouri got to experience her most recent birthday. Unfortunately, her husband wouldn't. Eric was not even allowed to turn 40. My dad always said life begins at 40. It's such a tragedy Eric did not get to see 40 candles on his cake. Eric Richins was 39 when he lost his life. That happened March 4th, 2022, under mysterious circumstances. Eric was born May 13th, 1982. Just imagine, as I'm recording this, in 2 days, it would have been his 41st birthday. But he didn't even make his 40th birthday last year. And now his wife is being accused of this 3rd poisoning attempt, taking him out. But before we get all into those details of how Eric lost his life that night, let's talk about years ago and how the couple first met. According to Kouri's former coworker, Linda King, Kouri and Linda worked together as checkout girls, as she called them, at Home Depot. And these contractor guys would come in. You know how the contractor guys come in hauling all the lumber and everything, and sometimes they're in a rush and they're really ready to get out of there and get to their projects. Eric Richins was kind of sweet on Kouri. Well, all the guys were. According to Linda, all the guys were checking out Kouri. She's a beautiful woman. I don't know how old she was back then, but we know that Eric was 8 years older than Kouri. And Eric, as we'll talk about, had been through his own divorce. He'd been through his own tragedies in his life, so Kouri probably looked pretty good to him. Maybe Kouri looked like a fresh start.
Yes, they were both shy about talking to each other. It was like, he had a company. One of his employees came in one day and said, "Oh, Eric likes, Kouri, Well, I said, "Come on in and let's, go over to her register and check out with her." He was, and they did. And she was like, "Oh my God, he talked to me, and they went on a date, and it was just perfect from then on. That I saw, and I was with her all the time at work."
Being an older woman, maybe like a mom figure to the couple, Linda would notice that Eric would start stealing glances over at Kouri, looking at her checkout line. So Linda encouraged Eric. She set them up. She said, "Why don't you go over to Kouri's line, check out with her." They were both kind of shy about liking each other or getting together. So Linda was kind of that catalyst to push them together. And it worked. Linda said Kouri was just gorgeous. All the guys thought she was it. So Eric probably thought he hit the lottery by being able to go out on dates with Kouri.
I thought it was like a fairy tale relationship. It seemed beautiful to me, you know, her and him, and has his business, and it just seemed beautiful. It's mind-boggling to me. I cannot put it together, you know, her and doing something like that. I cannot put it together in my mind. It just doesn't fit in my mind for some reason.
Linda joked that in her own pea brain, she thought their relationship was picture perfect. She thought it was a fairy tale. I mean, that's what it looks like online. When you look at their gorgeous photos, you see their gorgeous 3 little boys living in this beautiful Camas, Utah location. It's not pronounced Camas, as I looked up, but this Camas, Utah location, just gorgeous scenery, gorgeous people, building their family, building their life together. Linda said they went out on a date and it was perfect from then on. Well, obviously, not everything turned out perfectly, but Linda, in her motherly advice, she would counsel Kouri. She told her, don't be a cashier all your life. Just get out there, get out in the world and see things and do things. So Kouri did. She made her own way in the world. She married Eric. They went on to have 3 gorgeous sons, and Kouri became a realtor. Linda said about Kouri, she did good things, I thought. I was proud of her. Linda said Eric was the sweetest guy with the sweetest, nicest smile. That's why when Eric died mysteriously of a brain aneurysm, Linda, she felt sorry for the family. She felt sorry for Kouri. She couldn't believe it at first. Someone so young experiencing a brain aneurysm at 39. But then she thought, well, it could happen, and she felt so sorry, as many people probably did, for Kouri. Many people, except those who knew the real deal, except people like Eric's sister, who had already been warned, I think Kouri's going to try and kill me for my money. When Kouri was arrested, Linda couldn't believe it. Linda said she couldn't do that. She wouldn't do that. She had too much to live for. Everything was picture perfect, according to Linda. If the whole poisoning accusation is true, it wasn't picture perfect. Will they end up finding Kouri guilty for this crime? Well, according to these arrest affidavits and all these things that are coming out, like Kouri challenging the prenup she thought was ironclad, boy, did Kouri get a big surprise after Eric's death, learning that basically he had kicked her out of the will. It wasn't just going to be easy money flowing in, maybe like Kouri assumed. If that's the reason, if that's her motivation, if Kouri really did do these horrible, heinous things to the dad, to her 3 children, her husband. We will also look at Kouri's obnoxious appearance on Good Things Utah 1 month before her arrest. Kouri was just arrested. She has a custody status date of May 8th, 2023 in the Summit County Jail in Utah. 1 month prior to that, she had the nerve to go on Good Things Utah and promote her book, saying she wrote it with her children as they were getting over the grief of losing Eric.
Kouri Richins to share her 3 C's to helping kids cope with grief.
But, as we recently found out according to the Daily Mail, according to Kouri's prenup with Eric, she thought she was about to come into $3.6 million worth of his estate. Little did she know, Eric had made some movements that would block her from getting that money. He already feared previous alleged poisoning attempts. One back in 2020, a more recent one, and now the 3rd one, unfortunately, which took him off this earth. But since Eric feared his wife might kill him for the money, he had secretly transferred his assets to a trust that his sister controlled. Little did Kouri know her fight for this money wasn't going to be so smooth. So let's talk about the night of Eric's death, the night of the crime. It was March 4th at 3:22 a.m. when the Summit County Sheriff's deputies and EMS workers responded to their beautiful home. It's at 282 Willow Court in Camas, Utah. they got a report of an unresponsive male. When they got there, Eric was found on the floor at the foot of his bed, the bed he shared with his wife, a wife he probably did not trust but had not left at that point. There was thoughts of divorce, but unfortunately, he didn't divorce her before it was too late. They attempted life-saving measures, but unfortunately, Eric was declared deceased. In fact, when Kouri had called 911, we'll see how she would already say he was cold to the touch when she allegedly found him. Authorities interviewed Kouri about this mysterious death, and this is what she told them. She said it was about March 3rd at 9 p.m. when Kouri and Eric were celebrating the fact that Kouri closed a home for sale. I find it very interesting that Kouri told police it was her accomplishment on the sale of this home that they were celebrating. We don't know if that's true or not, but it's also pretty curious that the sale and the flipping of one particular home we'll look at is what stood as a battleground, a battle point between the couple. Because Eric thought the home that Kouri wanted to build or buy and redesign, it looks like a new build. It's huge. We're going to look at it. Oh my goodness. It can hold 1 billion Utah children in this home, in this model design. But that was a problem. Eric thought it was too expensive. I guess Kouri wanted to just move full steam ahead. So I find it interesting that this night they were allegedly celebrating Kouri's success when Kouri made Eric a Moscow mule. She made it in the kitchen. She brought it into the bedroom with Eric. And then Eric drank it while he was sitting in bed. I wonder if it tasted weird at all. I don't know. The only people in the house at that beautiful house at that point on Willow Court were Eric, Kouri, and their 3 children. So this is 9 p.m. That's when Kouri said she went to bed. But then shortly thereafter, one of the children allegedly had night terrors, and so she went in one of the boys' room to spend time and just calm him down and sleep with him. This part I kind of actually believe. Other parts of her story aren't going to check out. This part I kind of believe because sometimes children can be so spiritually sensitive, they almost know when a tragedy or evil is afoot. Maybe one of the boys really did have night terrors, and Kouri went in there to spend time with the little boy until about 3 a.m. Kouri said she woke up around 3 a.m. and that's when she came back into the bedroom, her and Eric's bedroom. She felt Eric and allegedly he was cold to the touch. So that's when she called 911. But stuff did not check out. I'm not sure how quickly cops got hip to this game that Kouri's story isn't lining up. Because Kouri told law enforcement when she left to go deal with her child with night terrors, she left her phone just plugged up by the bed. She didn't take her phone with her, she said, into her child's room. Don't these would-be criminals know they can find almost anything on our phones these days? Because that story didn't check out. Authorities found that during the time that Kouri said she was in her child's room and between when she called 911, her phone status shows she was unlocking it and locking it multiple times, or at least someone was. I mean, Eric was likely passed out from this cocktail of stuff, the Michael Jackson stuff she eventually allegedly gave him. There was movement recorded on the phone. You know, they can tell with these chips, they can tell if we're walking or running or in a car with our phones. It also says, in addition, tolls on the defendant's phone show that messages were sent and received during that time, and these messages were deleted. I hope to God they recovered those messages. I don't know if it was Kouri texting someone or what the heck she was doing, but cops got hip to her game. After the autopsy and toxicology findings, they discovered there was a lethal amount of illicit fentanyl in Eric's system. The medical examiner says it was 5 times the lethal dosage of fentanyl in Eric's system. It wasn't medical grade, but it was some type of illicit fentanyl. And it's the opinion of the medical examiner that Eric ingested it orally because of his gastric fluid contents after they were examined. So it leads one to believe that maybe the fentanyl was somehow crushed or mixed into the drink. People are wondering why it took Kouri so long to get arrested, more than a year after Eric died. Well, after they got the information from the toxicology reports, which we know can take 4 to 6 weeks or longer. Then a search warrant was obtained for Eric and Kouri's residence. So that's when they were able to get Kouri's phone. They got a bunch of computers seized as evidence. They got warrants for the devices, and all this information was downloaded. And that's when they found some mysterious messages on Kouri's phone. They found messages between Kouri and some mysterious person named CL. That's all we know in the affidavit, CL. CL is some kind of acquaintance of Kouri's. Now, when police checked out this CL person, they found a bunch of counts of possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute, possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of a controlled substance. So it was May 2nd, 2023, not that long ago, when the Summit County detectives interviewed the CL person. And that's when CL started spilling the beans. CL said that sometime between December 2021 and February 2022, Kouri texted CL and asked CL, can you get some prescription pain meds? You know, Kouri made it seem like, okay, I have this investor who has a back injury and just, needs some help, some relief. So it only took CL a few days, but CL got some hydrocodone pills from a dealer. So then Kouri used her house flipping business to hide these transactions. Kouri told CL, look, leave the pills at this house I'm flipping on Midway. And that's what CL did, left the pills somewhere at this house in Midway. Kouri left cash for CL. Police determined that Kouri did indeed own this house in December 2021 and January 2022. So I guess that wasn't strong enough because it took 2 weeks later for Kouri to start texting CL again. Kouri started pretending like, well, my investor needs something stronger for that weak old hydrocodone for his or her back, and asked for, quote, some of the Michael Jackson stuff. Weird, because Michael Jackson was on propofol, which they give you, tends to give you when you have surgery. So I don't know, but that's what's going viral too, some of the Michael Jackson stuff. But that's when Kouri specifically asked for fentanyl. So then CL went on to contact this dealer in Ogden. It was February 11th, 2022. So CL got 15 to 30 fentanyl pills from that particular dealer. That's when Kouri went to CL's house in Heber, or is it Heber? I try and look up these city names. And CL delivered the pills to Kouri. And Kouri, in turn, gave $900 to CL for those 15 to 30 fentanyl pills. Now, only 3 days later, it was Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2022. Should have been a romantic type of time for a husband and wife. No, Eric gets sick because Eric and Kouri have a Valentine's Day dinner at their Camas home. And shortly after dinner, Eric gets really, really sick. Eric thought he'd been poisoned. In fact, Eric passed that on to a friend, like, hey, I think Kouri's trying to poison me. So this would have been the second time at least that she tried. We're going to talk about the 2020 time in a minute. 2 weeks after this Valentine's Day dinner from hell, Kouri contacted CL one more time. She asked for another $900 worth of fentanyl pills. Can you believe how some people spend their money just towards evil? So once again, CL contacted that Ogden dealer. It was February 26, 2022, and got the pills. Now this time, Kouri told CL, okay, leave those pills in this outdoor fire pit in the Midway house where there was cash already waiting for her. So obviously CL is a woman, according to the affidavit. Only 6 days later, on March 4th, 2022, that's when Eric was found dead of a fentanyl overdose.
So my husband passed away unexpectedly last year. So it's March 4th was a 1-year anniversary for us, and he was 39. It completely took us all by shock.
And already I've seen a defense attorney on Twitter trying to take the defense side of things. I understand they have a job to do. She's already questioning, okay, how could the fentanyl pills, she needed to see the route of the fentanyl pills and being in his gastric fluids. I don't know, it's weird. Some people just find it so unbelievable, but I'm sure people who don't find it unbelievable are those who know how Kouri's been fighting this prenup and fighting to get Eric's money, namely her sister-in-law, knows the deal. But let's talk about what Kouri did in the year after Eric's death, before we get all into that prenup brouhaha. She wrote a book. The book was called Are You With Me? So 1 year later, she was already hiring out different services, it appears, to drum up customer reviews, positive reviews for this book. So I found on Friday, March 24th, 2023 at 2:08 p.m., there's a post on this booktalk.org site. It's called New Children's Book, Reviewers Wanted. Are You With Me? That's the title. Now, of course, who's ever promoting this book and whoever reviewed it, whoever bought it, I'm trying to get my hands on a copy. It's off of Amazon. I'm trying to find a hard copy. I want to read the inside of this book. But, of course, whoever drummed up support to try and get reviews or whatever for this book, of course, they likely had no idea what Kouri had done. But I wondered if this was a way for her to try and get more money in the wake of fighting for Eric's money. And we're going to look at this house that he thought was too expensive and how it has a pending sale right now. But I doubt that Kouri's going to end up getting any of it. I do hope their sons can be well taken care of. You know, they lost their young dad last year and now they've lost their mom to the system. She'll probably be in prison the rest of her life if she is indeed guilty. So I hope any monies can help the boys. Let's take a look at the description of this book along with snippets from Kouri's interview on Good Things Utah, where she's promoting this book and just has the nerve to talk about her son's grief when she's accused of being the one who brought them all this grief by taking their dad away.
And we have 3 little boys, 10, 9, and 6. And, you know, my kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year. And, you know, hoping that it can kind of help other kids, you know, deal with this and kind of, you know, find happiness some way or another.
It's called a heartwarming and reassuring book that gently guides children through the difficult experience of losing a loved one. Written by a loving mother who personally faced this challenge, this book is designed to offer comfort and solace to young minds in a way that is both accessible and engaging. Kouri had the nerve to tell that Utah TV station, the host, that she looked and looked for something that, you know, would strike a chord and work for her. She wanted to read something to her boys, I guess, at night. They had questions and all of that. And since they couldn't find anything that resonated with them, she said, let's write a book, boys.
And so I've done, you know, I'm new to all of this, so kind of doing, you know, research and reading books and things to try and understand, you know, not only how to grieve as a widow, as a wife, but also, you know, with my kids, how to help them understand what just happened. And what I have kind of found is, as I mentioned, it's kind of the 3 C's is how I visualize it. And it's, you know, connection, continuity, and care. And it's, you know, making sure connection is the major one, and making sure that their spirit is always alive in your home, you know, and memories are always brought up, and doing things that your loved ones love to do, whether it's riding bikes or their favorite dinner, and just constantly, you know, talking about them.
And Kouri, do you mention at dinner, here's Dad, or Dad would like this meal, or Dad would, let's bring Dad on a bike ride?
Yeah, exactly. And it's, you know, explaining to my kid, just because he's not present here with us physically, that doesn't mean his presence isn't here with us, and he's doing these things with us. And he's, you know, here for birthdays, and he's here for Christmas, and, you know, and it's just comforting to them to know that, you know, they're not living this life alone. Like, Dad is still here, it's just in a different way, a different version.
Well, I opened up your book, and one of the first pages I saw is a little boy. It looks like he's standing in a hallway at school, and he's saying, are you still here?
Yes, yeah, and it's, you know, and that was like the first day of school, and, you know, all the nerves that kids face on the first day of school with new, you know, and just hoping, you know, Dad, like, walk with me, like, help me get through today, like, give me the strength to do that. And it has found, you know, it's been a lot of peace for my kids, to really remember that in the back of their head, that they're never alone,
So you actually wrote this book with your children.
I did. Mm-hmm.
And it's only been a year. How did you process and go from processing death to I need to write a book and help others?
I just watched the struggle that my kids were going through, and I actually, I went on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and trying to find something that we could use to cope at nights. Nights are the hardest, it seems like, for everybody when, dealing with anything, but I just wanted some story to read to my kids at night, and I just could not find anything. I couldn't find anything that really, suited them or helped them find comfort and peace, and so, I was like, let's just write one. And so, I took things that my kids have said to me this last year, and we kind of articulated it and put it into a story, and, just have hopes that it will help other kids.
There's nothing wrong with that if it were a true grieving widow who had nothing to do with her husband's demise. But looking at her interview through the eyes of someone accused of poisoning him multiple times, 3 times, like how many times would God give her the opportunity to turn around and not do that? It goes on to say, with vivid and colorful illustrations, Are You With Me follows the story of a child who has lost their father, but who is reminded that his presence still exists all around them, just like an angel watching over them. Oh my goodness, and people are talking about how it looks like a rendition of Eric on the cover. It almost looks like a coffin in the back there to me. I'm just not sure. But like Eric flying over them. Yeah, Eric's presence might be all around, but maybe not in the way that Kouri anticipated. If she's guilty, maybe she just wanted him to go off, go away. Let me enjoy my realtor career or to do whatever I want, with our children and enjoy your nearly $4 million estate, but it didn't work out that way. Whether it's playing at the park or simply enjoying a quiet moment at home, the child is comforted by the knowledge that their father is always by their side. As a book that celebrates the resilience of the human spirit, Are You With Me is a must-read for any child who has experienced the pain of loss, and for parents who want to provide their children with the emotional support they need to heal and grow. A story of hope, healing, and the unbreakable bond between parent and child. And when we talk about the About the Author section, Kouri D. Richins is the mother of 3 young boys and a licensed realtor in Utah. Indeed, she looked pretty successful as a realtor. It says she attended graduate school at Utah State University, where she received her master's degree. After the death of her husband, she wrote the children's book, Are You With Me, for her kids to let them know Dad is always near. Yeah, he's near, and we're praying he gets his justice. In the book, he is an angel at every event in their life. She enjoys spending time with her family, traveling, and volunteering with various youth programs and organizations.
And to make sense and process, I'm sure, and I'm sure you felt that going through and trying to explain it and articulate it for you and your boys.
Yes, exactly. And
grief is not linear, and this sounds like it's a touchstone when you need it to come back to for you and your boys. So the first one you had mentioned was connection of the 3 C's, keeping the person's spirit alive. The second, continuity.
Yes, and that's, just making sure you're trying to stay, as much as you can on routine, and, whether that's, sports or pick up and drop off from school or community activities, just, trying to stay in a routine as much as possible.
And then the last C is care.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So, on top of just loving your kids and hugging them and kissing them and, extra cuddles and everything, I think it's important that I've learned to really affirm, their feelings. When they're mad or they're sad, it's just that affirmation of, I understand, that you are upset, because of this. Let's talk about it, and so I think really it's not, it's the emotional and physical touch of it, but really letting your kids understand that why they're feeling the way that they are feeling, and it's okay, and let's deal with it and talk about it.
There's a promotion right now. Get a free copy of the book April 30th and May 1st through Amazon Kindle.
So it looks like Kouri wanted to keep this reputation of this grieving widow, have everyone, of course, pour out their sympathies to this young widow with 3 boys. Husband suddenly died of an aneurysm. Of course, who would ever begin to believe that she would be accused of poisoning him? Now I know from following so many true crime cases that poisoning is a popular method for women to use. That part strikes true and real. What is weird is, I guess you don't always see cases where, the husband's about to divorce and the wife takes this route, just taking out the parent of 3 children. Sometimes that part is reversed, and that's why another reason people are probably glomming onto this. Anyone can be money hungry, anyone can have the love of money, which is the root of all evil. I feel like that's what's happened with Kouri. I did see a previous bankruptcy or 2 with Eric, but that was many years ago. Kouri, I didn't find anything on her like that, except this prenup info coming up. She was successful in her own right, Kouri was. She appeared in Mountain Express magazine, just different ads, winter, spring 2022, and now she's looking forward to a detention hearing, State of Utah versus Kouri Richins, coming up May 19th, 3 p.m. I want to really follow this case. But let's talk about this 8.75 acre property that became a bone of contention in their marriage. I wonder if Kouri felt like, oh, Eric's older than me, he doesn't think I should flip this house, he thinks it's too expensive. Instead of just saying, okay, we can divorce and we can split the marital property equitably as the judge or court decides and, work out child custody. When in her mind did she start this alleged poisoning scenario? We are going to look at a huge property, buildings more than 20,000 square feet. I mean, Utah has the space, and a lot of LDS, sometimes they have the family members to fill it. You can see all these bunk beds. It looks like some kind of a camp or compound. Now, according to KPWC, there's a mansion that broke ground in 2017, but it was never finished. They call it a roadside curiosity in Midway, but now it's at the center of Eric's demise. It's the house that Kouri wanted to flip, but Eric thought it was too expensive. So it's some 20,000 square foot mansion. It's sitting out there on 8.75 acres north of State Route 113. It's in East Midway, and it's at 106 North Legacy Way. It's even got a 3,000 square foot guest house. I mean, my house isn't even 3,000 square feet, let alone a guest house being that huge. But it was a bone of contention, a source of disagreement in Eric and Kouri's marriage. Maybe it was the reason she took it way too far and just turned evil. Or one of the reasons. This house was under contract at the time Eric died in March 2022. Now, according to court documents, Eric thought this $2 million price tag of the house was too high, too expensive. So is that the reason that cops finally caught up with her on Monday, May 8th, 2023? We don't know why it took them so long. I mean, it takes time to get all these search warrants, download all this data, find the text between CL and Kouri, and establish a pattern. It's better for cops to wait until they are absolutely sure that they can prosecute this case correctly than to go, oh, I want to arrest you, and then, oh, we better drop the case and find out the details later. But Eric's family members thought he was about to tell Kouri, we're not going to buy that Midway mansion, it's too expensive. However, the day after Eric died, March 5th, 2022, Kouri closed the deal. So, is it because Kouri was sitting there thinking, I'm not going to let him tell me what to do, I better get rid of him? Is that why she said they were celebrating her closing a house? Were they really celebrating at all? Or is that just Kouri's wishful thinking? But that same day, the day after he died, Kouri held a family gathering there. That's when the stuff started to hit the fan. That's when Kouri learned she'd been cut out of Eric's will. It wasn't going to be easy street like, oh, he's gone, aneurysm, and now I can live off of his money. No. The fact that she had been cut out of her husband's will, quote, making her financially unstable, was probably flipping her out that day. Exactly 2 weeks after Eric died, Kouri knew she's in dire straits, so she put the house back on the market for $5 million. And now there's even a buyer for the home, 106 North Legacy Way, Heber City, Utah. It's a mansion. There's a realtor named Mike Malmrose. He's listed this property since at least March 2022, before anyone even knew there was a murder investigation going on in Summit County. He did confirm that the mansion is now under contract, but not for $5 million, it's for the $3.75 million. There's going to be a buyer's due diligence meeting coming up, and that's when Mike will know, will this deal really go through for $3.75 million. I admit this house is gorgeous. It is huge. As you can see from the concept video, oh my goodness, it's incredible. You see it flying around, and so there's a CAD, architectural design concept video done. And you see the pool area, and you see it looks like a hot tub, and we don't know exactly, if everything will lay out the way it is, but it's so many rooms and levels and the windows and the scenery in the background. I mean, it is a huge, gorgeous home. I feel like you'd have to fill it with seemingly several families and 25 children or something. The video shows a vision for the 8-bedroom, 11.5 bathroom property. And when I say 8 bedrooms, you might as well have 20 bedrooms, because the concept video shows you just bunk beds lined up everywhere. You could throw 10 kids in one of those bedrooms. It has a therapy pool, another pool that is full-sized, an exercise room, a golf simulator, indoor volleyball court. You can have all these virtual reality installations. You just see the virtual reality visors. You see a whole wall filled with a screen. I mean, it could just be like a kid and adult's dream. It's just huge. But if this buyer doesn't close, Mike doesn't know what his plan B will be. He did say a couple of other buyers are interested, and I bet you he will sell it. Because, to go from a $5 million down to a $3.75 million reduction, and you hope good people get in there, not someone who wanted it via evil means like Kouri. It would be good news for Kouri, says KPCW, because Kouri has not only retained a criminal defense attorney, Sky Lazaro, but she's also retained bankruptcy attorney Austin Nate. So she's going to have to deal with her life after this prenup didn't go her way, and I'm sure the arrest didn't go her way. None of the attorneys would comment on Kouri's case so far. And Summit County prosecutors wouldn't comment either, but we can find certain facts in the public record. I want to find her booking photo too. Prosecutors have already cited this international attention, they should say, that Kouri's case has gotten since Monday, but there is the presumption of innocence, innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Or maybe she'll confess. But of course it's gone nationwide, around the world, because who ever heard of a woman being accused of poisoning the dad of her 3 sons and then going on, what hubris, to write a children's book. It's something her family did not like, especially Eric's family did not like, the attention she put on herself. But you find that when people do evil, Barry Morphew, when people do evil and then it's not even like Kouri sat back quietly and said, it's bad enough that I'm alleged of doing this, if she's guilty, but going on to put herself out there to say, look, children's book, I'm a grieving widow, look at what a good mom I am, helping my boys get over their dad's death. When, if she really did poison him, her sons would not have had to experience any grief. And imagine her sons growing up to know or believe, if she's convicted, my mom did this to my dad when I was just a little boy. We'll talk about their ages. My mom took my dad away from me? Over what? Over money? Prosecutors say they know the deal. They are professionally obligated to protect Kouri's rights because they want to ensure a fair trial. They don't want to release too much info. We know the drill. And Eric's family did not comment to that publication. But their feelings are getting out through different articles. So Kouri right now is facing aggravated murder and 3 counts of possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance. So, since Kouri is being held without bond in Summit County Jail, her detention hearing being scheduled for May 19th, it'll be interesting to see. I'm not sure if that's her arraignment. I don't know if she'll enter a plea at that point. We have to watch and wait and see if it'll play out, if she's allowed to show up anywhere on camera. Utah can be so wonky. Like the Lori Vallow trial, I really wanted to cover that, but I hate trials where there are so many restrictions on no video, or yes, you can have the audio, you can publish it, or other trials, the West boys in California, yeah, you can listen to the audio, but you can't publish it at all. That's why I covered Letitia Stelk's trial, because at least we got video, we got audio. Granted, it was WebEx, but it was much better, and you could literally see the system of justice playing out. I hope we get to see Kouri Richins' whole trial, the whole process playing out before us. That's when 3rd District Judge Richard Mrazek will consider if Kouri is a flight risk or not. Is she an ongoing threat to her community? So are they going to hold her in jail this whole time the criminal case is pending, or, will they let her out? I hope they hold her with this dangerous accusations of her allegedly multiple times trying to poison her husband. I wouldn't trust her running around out in the street somewhere. But now let's talk about Kouri's lawsuit when she was disputing Eric's will. So shocked face, she figured out, oh my goodness, I've been cut out of Eric's will. This whole plan isn't going to plan. So she filed a lawsuit claiming the money was rightfully hers. But she accused her late husband of trying to defraud her, Kouri did. By taking legal action, Eric was shielding his property and his business away from his wife without her knowledge. So Kouri made a claim against the living trust that Eric had set up. He drew it up. He did not inform her in November 2020. Now, Eric was previously married to a woman named Julie Jorgensen. He had married her in 2005, but he had already gotten divorced from her, and she ended up losing her life tragically in a car accident. Eric did all these machinations with his money because he feared, quote, his wife, Kouri, might kill him for the money. So Kouri didn't know this, but Eric, before he died, had transferred the family home, all personal property, and his interest in his masonry business that he ran with his friend and partner, Kouri Wright. He transferred it into a trust. And then he placed the trust in control of his oldest sister. He has 2 sisters, so he placed the trust in control of the oldest one. She's 38-year-old Kouri Richins Benson. But see, Kouri didn't know this. So Eric was obviously confiding in his sister. You'll see he's like, whoa, I think my wife's trying to kill me. Let me get some things in order, because she's just trying to go for broke and go for all the money. So get this. Kouri was still thinking the prenup that her mother-in-law presented her on the day of her wedding to Eric, how about that? She thought that was still in control and binding. Kouri thought Eric's estate was going to be divided according to the terms of their prenup agreement. That's the prenup agreement that Eric's late mother, Linda, had presented to Kouri on the day of their wedding. Maybe that's a thing. That reminds me of Real Housewives of Atlanta when Candy and Todd were talking about the prenup on the day of their wedding, or it was the day of their wedding. So they signed the wedding certificate and the prenup together June 15th, 2013. So the couple didn't even make their 9th wedding anniversary. She took them out of here before they could even be married 9 years. But under the terms of that prenup, once Eric died, pretty much everything would just go to Kouri without any problems. She thought, okay, he's gone, this is the deal. Ironically, it was Eric's first short-lived marriage that caused him to draw up a prenup in the first place. So when he was married to Julie Jorgensen, he married her in 2005 and he divorced her in 2009. Obviously something happened in that marriage that, gave him the thought, well, I better protect my assets. Julie would go on to die in January 2011, at only age 26. She got rear-ended by somebody driving a pickup truck like 70 miles an hour, and she was just waiting there at a red light. That is what was reported by the Salt Lake Tribune. So this driver who rammed into Julie, he couldn't see through this frost-covered windshield. He had been smoking weed, and he rammed into her, and he was later sentenced to prison. But according to court filings, Eric's family was trying to protect him. They didn't want a repeat of whatever difficulties happened in his divorce from Julie. Unfortunately, KPWC says maybe he signed his own death warrant unwittingly, by giving Kouri free reign to all of his assets only upon his passing. That's because Kouri, in her mind, she's still thinking, oh, that prenup, it's in full force and effect. She knew if Eric dies while we're still married, all those millions come to me. So no wonder Kouri maybe started, as we're going to see in 2020, her plans to slip things in his food or drink to get rid of him, especially as whispers of Eric wanting a divorce started to roll about. The Daily Mail has seen the prenup. Both Eric and Kouri had agreed neither of them had any right to, quote, present or future income or assets of the other, including but not limited to the business known as C&E Stone Masonry LLC, which is owned in partnership between husband and a third party, not Kouri, unless Eric died while the pair were still legally married. So she had like 3.6 million reasons to go the poisoning route. It's so sad and stupid that some people think they can get away with this madness. And the couple agreed that the company would, quote, remain the sole property of the husband, except if he should predecease his wife while they were still legally married. So all of this language Kouri obviously took to heart, allegedly maybe used it as a blueprint if she is indeed guilty. If Eric predeceased Kouri, then that's when the husband's partnership interest in his masonry business shall transfer to the wife. Now, the prenup way back then placed the value of Eric's interest in his business at $2.5 million in 2013, but that was 10 years ago. Can you imagine? A figure which, according to Kouri's filings, state was easily exceeded by the time of his death. But Eric's wishes were that in the event of his death, he wanted 50% of their successful business to be bought out by his partner, Cody. So he wanted 50% to be bought out by his partner, Cody, using the payout from a life insurance policy for which Cody was named the beneficiary, not Kouri. So Kouri did try to change the terms of that policy in January 2022. She wanted herself named as beneficiary instead of Cody, her husband's business partner. But insurance companies are no dummies. They informed the business partners of this change, Kouri trying to sneak in there and change herself to beneficiary. So they switched it back to the original terms, what Eric wanted. So Kouri went ahead and filed her claim, none the wiser, against Eric's sisters and his estate on March 28th. That was last year, 2022. It was less than 2 weeks after Eric's older sister opened the probate actions in order to execute her brother's will. So older sister's trying to take care of business. She knew how Eric wanted things carried out, and Kouri's filing a claim to try and get some of that money. Within 48 hours after Eric's death, the battle lines had already been drawn between Kouri and his family. So Kouri says that on March 5th, this is the night after Eric was found dead, several individuals, including Eric's sister, spent the night at the family home. The next morning, March 6th, 2022, Kouri asked Eric's sister to leave, to give her time and space to grieve the passing of her husband. So that's kind of foul. You know, your husband dies unexpectedly. His family comes to stay with you, and within, 48 hours, it's like telling your sister-in-law, get out of here. I need my own time to grieve and heal. Kouri says that despite these requests, the sister refused to leave and began threatening and verbally accosting Kouri. After Kouri insisted that the sister leave, the sister asserted that Kouri did not own the family home and that she would ensure Kouri was kicked out of the family home. I don't blame Eric's sister because Eric's sister was already privy to his fears. His family already knew, Eric is saying Kouri's trying to poison me. So of course they're not going to just be lovey-dovey and happy with Kouri after Eric winds up dead. Of course there's going to be tension. Of course his sister is going to be yelling at Kouri. But Kouri is fighting back, or at least she was fighting back, claiming that her and Eric purchased their Camas property together. It's only a 20-minute drive from Park City, Utah. It's got to be just gorgeous land. Kouri says, look, we bought it together. We both contributed to the down payment and the mortgage payments. Now see, while that might be true, everything goes out the window in terms of ownership when you're talking about one spouse allegedly killing another. Kind of like with Chris Watts and Shanann Watts after his horrible, heinous actions against his family Of course, he shouldn't share any ownership in that home on Saratoga Trail, no matter how much he may have put into a down payment or the mortgage payments. Like, all that flies out the window when a crime like this occurs. Kouri was still fighting before she was arrested, saying Eric had no right to transfer her share of the property into the trust, and that he did so, quote, with actual intent to hinder, delay, or defraud her and her claim and her interest in the same. So not only is she suing the estate to try and get her share of the deal, she also asked for compensation of at least $300,000. This is the reason, because she called it, quote, the unjust enrichment of the trustees. So she's trying to say Eric's sister or his business partner or whomever's named on the trust they were unjustly enriched. But Eric's sister Katie is fighting back. She's disputing her sister-in-law's claims. Katie says that Kouri, quote, did not purchase or in any way contribute to the purchase of the family home. She countersued Kouri and asked the court to dismiss Kouri's claim and take nothing, but instead pay those fees, those trust attorney fees, and the costs. This was all before, of course, Kouri got arrested. So there was an answer filed last June to all this brouhaha, where Katie pointed to the suspicious circumstances of the way Eric died. And she knew back then, Katie at least knew, that police were investigating it as a potential murder. And that's what became a reality this past Monday when Kouri was indeed arrested and has all these charges now against her. But according to the Daily Mail, what's so surprising, beyond the shock of her writing a children's book in the wake of his death, it wasn't the first time they believe Kouri tried to poison Eric. It was in 2020 when Eric called his younger sister, 35-year-old Amy. He called her from vacationing in Greece, and he told her he became sick after consuming a drink made for him by Kouri. That's when he told his younger sister, Kouri may have poisoned me. And then there's one family friend who spoke to the Daily Mail under the condition of anonymity, like don't tell anyone. Kouri and her very public self-promotion in the aftermath of Eric suspiciously dying has been, quote, hell for the family. I bet. I'm sure this is the question a lot of viewers have. This friend said, quote, we don't know why he stayed, thinking what he did, but they had small children. That changes things, and you can never get inside someone's head or marriage. And of course, I'm sure Eric probably loved Kouri. Maybe he loved her from the beginning and married her. And of course, couples have their disputes about money and control and issues and things. But I wish Kouri wouldn't have taken this route. The first time in 2020, there's these poisonings, and then the times in 2022, at least 3 times, and maybe Eric didn't want to believe it. I think that could be it. He could have been in denial. Part of him likely wanted to tell his sisters, like, just in case, because it's in here somewhere. If something happens to me, she did it. So he did. He was lucid enough to say, wait, this isn't right. And especially to consume a drink and then you immediately get ill, it makes you think, wait a minute, and we've been arguing over money, and there's these dealings going on, and Kouri's trying to become beneficiary, and I don't want her to become beneficiary, and that sounds like a bunch of greed going on here. Like, it should be relatively easy to prove. Did Kouri put money in on a down payment? All of this a great forensic accountant could have figured out in court. If Kouri would have said, I'll let him go through with the divorce, a forensic accountant, a good one, they can find, if you try and give your watch to someone to hide an asset from your wife, they can find that. Kouri should have trusted in the Lord and said, look, I'll let the divorce go through. He wants a divorce. I won't take my children's dad away from them. I'll let a forensic accountant determine if I gave a down payment for this house, and here, where I've been paying the mortgage payments, or, here's this, here's that. That could have all been proven in court. She didn't have to allegedly take him off the face of the earth to try and get his money. And I'm glad it didn't work. That friend described it as a bittersweet moment when Kouri was arrested. That friend added, quote, it's been days and days and weeks and months to get here. Can you imagine just waiting over a year, having your suspicions about this woman doing this to her husband, and you wait a whole year and then you see her going on Good Things Utah bragging about some book that she wrote. And also over on TikTok, people are like, why are you saying Kouri refused to remove her jacket for that interview? Well, that's because that's what News Nation, if you watch Ashley Banfield's segment about it, she interviewed the women who interviewed Kouri for that book promo. And that's one thing they mentioned. Kouri kind of has on a leather jacket and she refused to take it off. And it does account for some of the kind of microphone issues. Like, I'm hoping the mic isn't really, maybe it's picking up my earrings now, but mics can be sensitive, so I could hear the microphone scratching on her coat. But for some reason, she refused to take off her leather coat, and I just found it interesting. But this same friend said, quote, "The family are just the salt of the earth, and Eric was the nicest man. He was so well liked and so young, and this isn't the end of anything. It's just another step in what has been hell for them." So again, we're looking forward to that first court appearance of Kouri, Friday, May 19th. I'll work on getting the booking photo if I can find it, or work on getting video of her appearance. But the obituary for Eric, we can close with this. Walker Memorial. It talks about Eric Richins, and it's interesting, and I wonder who wrote it, because it kind of paints Kouri as a loving wife. But it says, Eric Eugene Richins made his last extravagant and largely unexpected gesture on March 4th, 2022, signing off on a life, in his own words, quote, "lived to the fullest and with few regrets." I want to know if Kouri wrote this. That's why I want to get her children's book, because I want to see what else she said inside. God certainly perfected the mold when Eric was born to Jean and Linda Carter Richins on May 3rd, 1982 in Bountiful, Utah. What a beautiful name. Eric's world revolved around his family, his love for hunting, the family cattle ranch, and his insane drive as a successful entrepreneur. Being born into the Richins legacy, I guess they're a famous, kind of well-known family out there, it shaped Eric's formative years and resulted in a lifetime of hard work, dedication, and fierce loyalty. And maybe that's another reason Kouri didn't want to, kind of have the Richins name stripped from her. Just not necessarily literally, but maybe metaphorically, if they had gotten divorced. Being the eldest was a dubious task, but he was up for that challenge and led and loved his sisters fiercely. At an early age, Eric learned the joys of keeping horses and cows around. He spent countless hours helping his dad work the ranch, hauling hay, feeding the animals, mending fences. He loved his family unconditionally and was a devoted son, brother, and uncle. Eric was a family man who always strove to be the absolute best father and husband. He was an attentive and loving father to his 3 sons, Carter, 9, Ashton, 7, and Weston, 5. So young, I'm assuming they're all a year older now, but so young still. And a devoted husband to the love of his life. So it says, devoted husband to the love of his life. Maybe she wasn't, the vice versa, And wife of 9 years, Kouri Darden Richins. Eric did absolutely everything in his power to provide his family with every possible opportunity to learn, grow, and have fun. And I can't help but think of that bizarre Facebook reel Kouri posted in the wake of Eric's death. She wrote, "Life is just so hard without you here. The cards I have been dealt seems like a game that just can't be played." Yeah, that reel has been removed. I wish I could have downloaded it. Maybe I can find it somewhere. Well, it's just, I think, like a photo slideshow with music we can't play on YouTube anyway. But wow, for her to say that. Life is so hard without you here. The cards I've been dealt seems like a game that just can't be played. Yeah, it's a game, all right, that won't be played, or it didn't get played in the way she expected. But growing up, Eric was a serious athlete and loved all sports, whether it was watching them or playing them. He was involved in cross country, basketball, baseball, and soccer. He was also the coach or assistant coach on all his boys' teams. Oh, that's horrible. He spent countless hours coaching and teaching the boys to play aggressive and give it their all. Eric truly cared about every single child he coached and wanted the absolute best for all of them. I didn't know he coached his own boys too. Eric was an avid outdoorsman and dedicated hunter. He was an excellent archer and marksman and had multiple trophy animals from all around the world, including Africa, Mexico, Canada, and the United States. His obit says there was never a dull moment when you were around Eric, whether it be him showing up to a family dinner with no socks or sleeves on his shirt because he had to make an emergency bathroom stop along the way. Oh, that's funny. Or his calling to tell you he rolled the four-wheeler for the umpteenth time is stuck and needs you to come get him. I really wonder if Kouri wrote this, or I don't know if this is like from a loving family perspective or if it's like a left-handed slight compliment perspective of Kouri. I don't know. But Eric loved to have fun and was always the life of the party. He owned almost every motorized toy possible, from four-wheelers and side-by-sides to trucks and snowmobiles. Because of this, he of course holds the Richins family record for the most rolls and collisions of motorized vehicles, as well as the most stitches received from a single incident. Whoa, 200 on his face to be exact. Eric was a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints, and they spelled ladder wrong here. Anyway, he served a 2-year mission in Mexico City where he learned to speak Spanish fluently. He received a bachelor's degree from the University of Utah in International Studies with a minor in Spanish. Together, Eric's mission and his education truly shaped his business acumen. He had the perfect combination of business sense and foresight. He built a very successful masonry business from the ground up and helped many friends do the same. He had a special ability to build close relationships with everyone he worked with, which really allowed his business to thrive. Eric loved every aspect of his job, but most of all, he loved the people he worked for and those he worked with. I'd love to hear from some of Kouri's friends. I know we heard from Linda, her former co-worker, who couldn't believe Kouri did this, but I want to know maybe some of her contemporaries or her current girlfriends, like, were they just as blown away by her arrest? Eric faithfully supported organizations that he truly believed in. He never was one that wanted recognition or accolades. So that stands in contrast to Kouri going on local TV to brag about her book. He did most things anonymously and without recognition. Eric was a true champion of all people. It did not matter if you were an employee, family, friend, or the next random person walking down the street. If you needed anything, you could count on him. He truly cared about each person he met. He was always trying to help people find better situations in work and in life. Eric made sure to set time aside to do what he loved most and made sure that everyone around him did the same. Eric loved fully, laughed loudly, and lived life with reckless abandon. He enjoyed great adventures to far-off places, but also cherished the small and finer things in life, like his Under Armour sweatsuits and spending time with family and friends. No obstacle was too great for Rico. I guess that was his nickname. He simply viewed each one as a challenge. No peaks were too high, and the next adventure was always just around the next bend. Words can't describe the loneliness and loss that is felt in every heart that was lucky enough to know him. We all need to learn from Eric's example and be sure to make the time to have fun and do what we love. Thank you, Rico, for being such an inspiration and role model for all of us. We love you, Eric, with all our hearts and more. Eric was preceded in death by his amazing mother, Linda Carter Richins, his paternal grandparents, H. Lamont and Althea Ferguson Richins, his maternal grandfather, Charles Carter. And he's survived by his 3 incredible sons, Carter, Ashton, and Weston, his wife, Kouri Darden, his father, Eugene F., and his sisters, Katie Clint Benson and Amy William Richins. That's amazing that his dad is still alive and has to suffer the loss. His nieces, Madeline and Lillian Benson, and his maternal grandmother, Joan Carter. Wow, his grandma's still alive too. He is also survived by a multitude of aunts, uncles, cousins, and friends who all loved and adored him. Well, these are the ones who survived him last year as of his death. I'm not sure who's still alive. So they had services at this Hennifer LDS Chapel. There were viewings on Thursday, March 10th, 2022, as well as Friday, March 11th, 2022. There was a funeral at 11 a.m. in the chapel, and it was streamed live. So I don't know if it's anywhere that can be found. Everybody has an Eric story, and we would love to hear them all. What a horrible story. I think it feels like that obit was written in love, and maybe Kouri contributed some parts to it, but I wonder how Kouri acted at the funeral. It seems like Eric's sisters, for sure, his family, picked up definitely on her would-be alleged guilt pretty soon after Eric's death, because he took the time to warn his sisters, something is amiss with my wife. You know, he knew, you drink something, you shouldn't be getting sick multiple times. You have a Valentine's Day dinner, and you should not be getting violently ill. So I really want to follow this case and see what happens, you know. The wheels of justice can turn slowly, but hopefully now things will move through the court system at a better clip than they did in 2020. 1 John 4, 7 through 8. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. And it's so true. If we're operating in God's love, like, we can call ourselves whatever we want. Christians, LDS, blah, blah, blah. Some people, if we don't have the true love of God in us, we're going to act like this. If Kouri truly performed this heinous act against her husband, whatever the reason, no excuse. Maybe she felt he was too controlling. I don't know if there's a deeper story. We will find out later. But no excuse for taking the coward's way out and poisoning someone. Taking a dad away from his boys. No matter what, if this is just about the look of being a successful realtor and trying to get money she thought she was owed, and being mad at her husband for, you know, not making her a beneficiary, or him wanting a divorce. I mean, maybe he really did try and get out, and it's sad. We see these things happen to women, and sometimes we have so much sympathy. We have to have as much sympathy for men who are victims too of their spouse, of potentially a greedy spouse just wanting the money, when there's so much wealth here that she could have gone through the divorce court, and the judge probably would have given her the house anyway, or ordered them to sell the house and split the funds. Either way, she would have still been a rich woman. Like, even if they went through a divorce, a judge would not have left her penniless. She could have gotten spousal support and child support, and it would have been fine. But it just shows you, if she's guilty, again, she's presumed innocent, I have to say. But if she really did do this, she could have, in so many ways, just been fine. She could have let Eric go off and live his life. She could have gone off and lived her own life, written a different book. It didn't have to be a book on grief, because Eric would have still been alive. Write a different children's book about surviving divorce, not this horrible mess. So now she has a bankruptcy attorney, a criminal defense attorney, and now she's going to go through the judicial process. And if she's found guilty, and if she has to stay in jail through the whole process and go off to prison, then what's the point? What did she win? What did she gain? Eric is gone. She's away from her babies. What a mess. Human behavior fascinates me. So I want to keep up with this case, and thank you so much for watching all this. I plan to cover this and many others as, you know, updates happen. Especially if they are televised in court, video and audio, and if we're allowed to republish. I see those are the court cases that I gear towards, because the ones we don't, and we just get tweets or we just get audio and then we're banned from publishing it, those, to me, it's harder to follow because you can't see the process play out for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. God is love.